Now, here's 7 cryptocurrencies that are legitimately the cream of the crop in this space. These projects undoubtedly are going to create generational wealth for many people, myself included, because I have the conviction and foresight to look into what they're doing now and obviously hedge into the future. Now, luckily for you, I am bringing you this today. This is your foresight, and hopefully this can be a push into giving you some conviction into these amazing projects. Now, what is the fundamental connection between all of these projects? ISO20022, a standard created by ISO. Okay, we're going to get into what that actually means in a second, but I think most of you should already be familiar with what ISO20022 is, and particularly the projects mentioned today. This standard is pretty much synonymous with crypto now, right? Because these projects are some of the most popular in the space, but also I think it's kind of like thrown around so often, almost as much as blockchain and sharding, right? So we're going to get into everything today very quickly, because I'm going to go into each and every single one of these projects for you in just a moment and show you not just the reasons why they're bullish because they're in this standard or new financial system, but actually what roadmap events are coming up in the next few years that will propel them to all-time highs and hopefully make you a lot of money, as well as myself. But for those a bit confused, what is this and why are all these projects in the so-called standard? Well, it's replacing the current financial system, more specifically SWIFT, okay? We're talking about trillions of dollars every single day. Most importantly, guys, you can look at other cryptocurrencies and say to yourself, well, I like this because it does this and it niches into gaming or whatever. Where is the most amount of money moved in the world? The economy. Financial systems, okay? So this is where these guys are primarily focusing, okay? We have XDC, Ripple, Stellar, Hedera Hashgraph, IOTA, and Algorand, as well as the guy in the middle connecting everything together, ideally Quant. Now, there is Constellation Network on this list. I haven't included Constellation. I'm just focusing on the top 7 for now, okay? Now, of course, we've all probably seen this screenshot, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more and actually break it down for you guys so you have a very comprehensive understanding of what is exactly happening here, okay? Now, the reason they're also sound investments individually is because of this. This is what I call my prosperity wheel. The further in this wheel you go as a project, the more returns you can get on a shorter time scale, and the further out you go, the more powerful eventually the project will be. It just takes longer to establish. And what do I mean? Well, Web3 Degen in the middle is crypto-specific networks, DeFi, meme coins, things like that, okay? Then we have Web3 solutions in the outer ring from that. These are solutions to the degen, okay? So they will be required, but they're essentially solving problems we've created from the new industry, okay? And then we have yellow, which is Web3 solving Web2 ineffectively right now, and these guys primarily are always looking to push out to the green circle, and this is where 5 of the 7 projects we're looking at today currently sit. Now, the outer ring, the green circle, is Web 2 solutions right now. They're actually adequately solving, obviously not ideally just yet, problems in the real world, which is again where the yellow guys are pushing out of. Ultimately, what we're looking at here, and I want to really stress this for those of you who don't know, these projects are businesses, and we need to focus on businesses. Just like finding Microsoft way back in the early 2000s or 1990s, you've got to have the conviction and foresight to go, oh my God, what a fantastic project or company this might be. Same thing. A lot of these are structured as companies first, okay? Now, not cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are your ones in the middle. They'll get you fast returns, but ultimately, you're not going to have a really good time in 2030 because chances are most of them aren't going to be around that long, okay? Just a very brief interruption. I would just like to say, if I'm providing you value thus far, if you wouldn't mind just hitting the like button and also subscribing for more of this content, because ultimately, I try to provide you with as much value as I possibly can in the shortest period of time. With that said, back to the video. So, what even is ISO 20022 for those wondering? Well, the first part of the word ISO is the International Organization for Standardization. They just pretty much create standards that are implemented across different, I guess, economies, right? Different sort of aspects of the world, okay? Standards. Now, the 222 component of this is just pretty much a new standard for financial institutions, right? It's designed to improve the efficiency and accuracy of the current financial transactions that are going to be phasing out SWIFT by 2025. I'm not too sure how accurate that is. Now, that's not to say these projects are going to be fully implemented in 2025. These are just compliant cryptocurrencies to this standard. Other Web 2 solutions probably are as well that aren't cryptocurrencies, okay? So I want to make it very clear, these guys still have competition, and I think as far as I'm aware, none of them are actually confirmed ISO 20022 apart from XRP or RippleNet, okay? But essentially, why are these important and why do they have the opportunity to absorb a lot of the financial transactions? Well, because they are focusing on the information age, which is where we are currently pivoting to right now. Everything's going digital, everything will be tracked and stored digitally, which is obviously where we need to hedge, right? It's just as simple as that. Now, you can imagine these altcoins as businesses. They have the highest likelihood of lasting a long time. Again, they're primarily focusing financial-esque markets, right? Each of them do different things, which is why it's good to look into each of them individually, because they're doing different things and focusing on different niches, but they all kind of can work synergistically and provide value to this overall financial system. And why is this all important? Well, the ISO 20022 standard is more than just a new financial system. It's a hedge for the future, as in you and I, as we should all know, it is going to be extremely digital, as I have just mentioned. So they're all utility tokens. The ones on this list, there's 7 projects, are all what are called utility, which pretty much just means you can use the token for a purpose. You know, they're used to support an economy or used to support their ecosystem in some capacity. And this is things like markets. So what is the project focusing on, right? You have different markets. IOTA is looking at IoT. XDC is fintech. You know, XRP is focusing on a bank-to-bank sort of system, right? And this is where you have to focus, right? We look at the markets, we look at the implementations, where they're putting themselves and what are they offering as a solution, which all feeds back into the utility token. And then, is it actually being absorbed? Are we absorbing all the demand or ideal demand from these different narratives, right? This is things like transaction fees. If these are too low, guys, the network isn't making adequate money and also puts itself at a high security risk chances. Okay, so this is about a pretty good transaction fee, right? But if they're a different type of network that doesn't really utilize transaction fees per se, kind of like IOTA, do they have licensing fees, partnership agreements? How are they making money from their narratives, and specifically what they're offering their narratives? If we have too many red, okay, the network is bound to die unless they make drastic improvements. If we see more green, that's a good thing, all right? So when will most of these tokens begin outperforming the market, right? This is, again, utility tokens haven't really had their day in the sun because these altcoins are working with enterprise, multinational companies, governments, which takes a long time to establish, right? They give us safer long-term plays here, but you can imagine they have to obviously create the connections, talk, figure out a solution, and then if they're not hit with a massive wall that says, hey, we've got regulations in place, then they can begin working on an actual solution and implementing themselves into their narrative or global financial system, whatever it may be in some capacity. There's lots of steps involved here, especially with governments. These things take time, so we haven't seen adequate demand because they are focusing on the big boys, not this small crypto stuff, all right? Now, obviously, it does depend on the coin, but I'm expecting we're going to see lots of demand coming in about 2025 to 2030, as 2025, again, apparently here, is when SWIFT is going to be phased out. Obviously, we all know CBDCs are coming to be implemented into pretty much every single economy, and enterprises start understanding there's benefits to using this technology, because chances are the big boys do it first. The small guys go, hey, we should actually look at doing this, or at least have the foundation to be able to do that pretty easily. Okay, so this is from the SWIFT's website itself, right? An average of 42 million payments and security transactions are pretty much being processed every single day from their network. And how much money is that actually? Well, from a different source over here, again, 41.8 million transactions per day. That's 5 trillion effing dollars per day, guys. And that's not to say these projects will instantly absorb all that when we go to the new standard. Again, they're going to have existing Web 2 companies to compete with, and they're each other to compete with. But this is what we're looking at into the future, right? And so obviously some of these big connections are going to be playing off, I think, 2025 to 2030 and ultimately beyond, all right? So you can just imagine when this is all going, and that's not to say that new projects are going to come along as well. Imagine a synergistic ecosystem where we have seamless interoperability between banks, IoT, tokenized assets, public networks, games, TradeFi, supply management. You can just simply name it. And that's what this is offering the world. Okay, so again, really big narratives here. They have all great connections. So let's get into some of the more bullish features. So obviously I've spent a fair bit of time explaining all the previous information to you. So I'm going to be very quick in this section, but if you do want to learn more about any particular project, I've made deeper dives on each and every single one of these. And regarding the information specifically I'll be talking to you about today, other than IOTA. So you guys can find all that down below in the description. But I've ranked these in order of buy now to unsure right now. This isn't a good to bad or best to worst list. This is just simply what I am currently thinking. Now, of course, this is not financial advice. I'm just giving you my opinions, okay? So buy now is HBAR and Quant. Get your hands on ASAP. Is it two sort of sister networks, Stellar and XRP? If you can, DCA into XDC. A more longer term hold is IOTA, simply because they're doing IoT, and this might not be adopted as fast as some of these other networks that are sort of deeper in this specific area. And I think that IoT is going to be fundamentally a 100% guaranteed going to be implemented into the new world, right through obviously needing to be required in the sort of supply chain management system. So I think IOTA is going to be very prosperous, but I just think it'll be a little bit longer than most people expect. And I'm unsure on Algorand simply because there's been some recent news that have popped up for Algorand that I think, again, it's not bad. I'm just saying let the news settle and see how we sort of go. We don't want a lawsuit that kind of suppress it like XRP. Let's again go through very quickly. Let's start off with Stellar. These guys right now are about 8 cents. Now that's not too bad in terms of price. As we know, they're suppressed from XRP, and the circulating supply is the only real concern I have here. But of course, it's all in the hands of the Stellar Development Foundation, which can dump the tokens whenever they want. I don't ever think they will. These guys are businesses. They're smart people. They want to obviously impact the world, okay? They don't want to ruin their brand, okay? So they have some really important stuff coming out here, particularly what's called the Soroban update. They're launching a new state-of-the-art smart contracts platform that is developer-friendly, scalable, and deeply integrated with Stellar. You can imagine having a DeFi platform that is obviously very appealing for developers, a strong ecosystem, being the middleman of all like this smaller and even business-to-business, transactions, okay? They also want to bring in tier 1 assets, which is pretty much just like some of the world's biggest assets. They want to tokenize them on the network, which is really good. And they also want to have a cost competitive on and off ramp. Ultimately, things are ramping up for these guys, and they're really heavily focused into 2023, which is what I love. Now, next we have XRP, again, sort of like the sister net of Stellar. These guys are mainly focusing on the enterprise market, so really big transactions, so very liquid markets, okay? These guys have a similar situation here with their circulating supply and max supply. Now, I want to say for the record, these guys have a little bit different thing to Stellar, where they have escrow tokens over time. So yeah, they have a little bit of a different system, but ultimately, very, very similar. I'm quite bullish on XRP, but there is some controversy surrounding how their token is actually implemented within the actual markets they're focusing on, okay? But I don't want to get into conspiracy theories here. The really bullish thing is, of course, as we know, Ripple has a chance of actually bouncing back from the lawsuit. I'm not talking about in a few years. I'm talking about this year, if not the next few months, okay? So this is kind of supported, and there is conspiracy theories. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about conspiracy theories, but a lot of people are speculating that the reason why the SEC has went and sued Coinbase and Binance is because the SEC lawsuit against XRP is coming to a close, okay? I don't know how true that is, but a lot of people are quite favorable in terms of the outcome in this particular situation. So the next one is Quant Network. Now, I think if you can pick up Quant under $100 or around $100, it's honestly a steal. These guys benefit from a fantastic max/circulating supply here, very, very low, a lot less than even Bitcoins, for example, and they are doing extremely amazing things. Right now, they're working with the Bank of England, okay, but more specifically, potentially with these guys, the BIS, or Bank of International Settlements, which is working with the Bank of England. So there's some hypothesis here that there could be something really big at play on this. Project Rosalind, developing prototypes for an application programming interface to distribute retail CBDCs. What is Quant? Quant's an API agnostic network. It can connect to, agnostic means any sort of system. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? And down here, as they say, they're working with the Bank of England to develop prototypes for an API interface to deliver a two-tier distribution model from the central bank's private network into the economy, okay? So obviously to have a central bank's private ledger that has a list of all the transactions in the economy, how are they going to actually absorb all that sort of information from the economy? Well, they need an API, an agnostic API, which is hint, hint, Quant Network, okay? So again, I go into this quite a bit in its own sort of video. But as you can see here, Gilbert Verderin, the CEO and founder of Quant Network, has been working with this guy, Tom Mutton, on actually bringing this to life, okay? And I don't really want to go too much into it. Ultimately, UK will actually reach a decision on their CBDC situation by 2025, but most people are speculating, like they say down here, that it won't be implemented until the end of the decade. Now, that's not to say, of course, that Quant isn't going to be leveraged in other BIS countries. They have 65 other countries they're associated with. So this could be very, very bullish for quant, even in the mid to long term. Okay, it's definitely a long term, but even the midterm, right? Now, XDC Network, these guys have had a really big update recently come out here. They're actually working with a massive player in the TradeFi space over in Japan, okay, SBI. Now, with a focus on enhancing efficiency in the estimated annual $2,000 trillion trend, I shouldn't say dollar, I said trend, right? Yen trade finance market, XDC provides high speed value transactions and significantly lower gas fees, blah, 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 right? So ultimately, as XDC Network enters the Japanese market through its partnership with SBI VC Trade, it aims to drive digital transformation in the trade finance industry and establish itself as a global leader in this space. So what does this mean? Well, as they say, they can disrupt the market, the 2,000 yen per year trade finance market. How much is that? That's about 14 trillion US dollars. Now, Japan is one of the trade finance hubs of the entire world. So this is a massive, massive partnership. SBI is a massive player in the Japanese market. I think it's like the #1 player in that sort of market. So this is massive news. And again, I go into that a lot more detail in my separate video. Now, IOTA, again, the one that I know the least about, but still very cheap token price actually right now. They're only at just over a 2x up from their all-time low. All the tokens are in circulation, as we can see here. And these guys, you know, similar to Stellar, are really focusing on their roadmap in the upcoming years. Okay, they have what's called their Shimmer EVM chain, actually adopting the EVM technology, but it gets even better down here. So upcoming, they're looking at seamless protocol upgrades, right? Pretty much when they upgrade the network, they're going to focus on zero downtimes, which is more appealing, obviously, to their target market, the enterprise markets. They don't want to have downtime, obviously, if they're working on upgrades. Okay. But even better, this is the most bullish thing. Stardust Protocol upgrade, the largest utility upgrade in IOTA's history, will bring layer 1 native tokens, NFTs, smart contracts, chain anchoring, storage deposits, improved microtransactions, and more to the network. But over here, look at this. They're looking to shard the network, which is fantastic. As you know, this is going to pretty much provide infinite scalability. And also, they are going to be, look at this, pretty much removing their coordinator, which is like their very, very centralized consensus mechanism right now. They want to decentralize that. And this has been a very big limit to a lot of IOTA fans or potential fans because it's very centralized, but again, they're moving away from that. Now, Hedera, right? We're about 5 cents right now, just under, and I've always said if you can cop Hedera under 5 cents, it's a very good time to buy. The all-time low for HBAR was 1 cent, so we're only 5x up-ish from that point in time, which is fantastic. And if we come over here, they have a really good roadmap as well. I don't want to get into it because I have multiple times now. All I want to do is actually point out some potentially negative news. And I want to say this with the full record, HBAR is my #1 holding, right? So I'm not bagging on the project, but they were supposed to enable community nodes this month. And then at the end, or at least in the next quarter, at least this coming quarter, improve on that, right? So they're going to obviously expand on their community nodes, right? They were going to, right now it's very centralized, or it's decentralized, centralized. Like all of their governing council members, there's about 29 or so of them, have nodes, and that's the only nodes on the network right now. So they're going to open up some community nodes. But if we open up the HIP, which is the Hedera Improvement Proposal that actually went to the governing council to see if they wanted to go ahead with it, it was actually recently rejected. And the reason why, I'm not too sure, right? But as you can see here, this HIP has been rejected, and the proposed idea will not be implemented or pursued further. Go figure. I couldn't find information on that anywhere. But I've got plenty of bullish videos on HBAR. I'm still very bullish. I just thought you guys might want to know that. If someone can answer that down below, thank you. And of course, last but definitely not least, Algorand. I feel so sorry for these guys. They're actually only 30% up from their all-time low. But I still think let's just wait for the dust to settle because there's been some huge controversies recently with these guys twice now. The SEC have filed a lawsuit against one centralized exchange, these guys over here, Bittrex, back on April the 18th of this year. And they were mentioned, as you can see down here, as a security token, right? They were trading security tokens. And then recently, of course, yesterday, the SEC sued Binance and yet again, name dropped poor Algorand, okay? So it's pretty unfortunate. That's why the price has tanked so much. So again, I'm unsure on their future. I wouldn't want to tell you to look into the project just yet, just in case they hit with a lawsuit that might suppress the price like XRP. So that's going to do today's video, guys. I really hope you have appreciated it. And most importantly, learned something new, or at least open your eyes up to the possibility that these projects might actually be able to offer the world. Now, with that said, hopefully the 2 videos on your screen now will suffice to quench your thirst for more of my type of content, but ultimately I will see you in 24 hours. All right, guys, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.